that she loves me. I'm impressed, so to get her to confess that I'm already impressed by the rest. It's so comfy, left all the stress at the chest. And the rest already left on the jet to her country. She don't want up a get necklace, chest, titties pressed to my chest when she hugs me. It's easy, y'all. I like chicks that make my pee hard. Hee hard, cheeky boys only bikinis on. Watch TV, y'all, when they get kind of the CPR. And I push it in that box like it's VCR. Paper tongues on the seats, get a freaky on. Fifth dimension jumping over these heavy nones. The beaches want my booties looking like a peach inside that peach. Longest piece so you can't even see the string is on. Pillars stay still and they reach your palm. My fingerprints used to be covered in ink. Can't see the reason from this green lawn, and now I like pink. The only pussy that I beat on since we let me think. Some would just love it if I keep on regurgitating spew that I knew. So only residue left from new things I do is a clue. Seeing things that you just can't see from porch view. Balcony tossing a Taurus is butt like horseshoe. She put her heart up in front of her chest, so I guess she's suggesting that she loves me. I'm impressed, so to get her to confess that I'm already impressed by the rest. It's so comfy, left all the stress at the chest, and the rest already left on the jet to her country. She don't want a baguette necklace, just chest, titties pressed to my chest when she hugs me. I don't be around to hear what anybody says about me, cause it ain't about my business, about my bread. I can get the gossip just by napping in my bed. Those DP truths give me more intel than the feds. Was just with a milk, had those peanut turtle legs. The guests who just left cheap like a Mrs. West. Didn't set up to the shows, but they say my son's the best. I only talk about titties, my audience might be last. I just left Texas doing rodeo. Getting to do Venice and then Tokyo. He should have seen this coming, all the songs he wrote. It's kinda hard when they only know the coke he sold. No pity party, this thing no bra on the titties party. I enter calmly with blondies wrapping their wrists around me. Chicks in the army will sat me fatties on mission laundry. I keep a partner, not a missus, that may miss you for me. Heart up in front of her chest, so I guess she's suggesting that she loves me. I'm impressed, so to get her to confess that I'm already impressed by the rest. It's so comfy, left all the stress at the chest, and the rest already left on the jet to her country. She don't want a baguette necklace, just chest, titties pressed to my chest when she hugs me. One, two. Deep like the bottom half of a glass of liquid swishes. So what's going on, everybody? This is the second Secret Houses episode of season 2. And before we even get into this, right, I want to say first that I'm going to get a disclaimer, right? So don't off yourself by watching this video or after watching this video, because some things that I'm going to say may have you question your existence, all right? Just be strong despite whatever I say, all right? Also, what else I wanted to say about this episode is that, yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, oh, you may hear some disturbing language, you know what I'm saying? Things that may make your blood boil or might give you the chills, whatever the case may be, or something that you may think is just sick. You know what I'm saying? However, this is what I do. So with no further delay, here we go. So, all right. I want to start by saying the intent of this video is to see how Taurus applies their value to things. All right. And also to extend on what we were speaking about before with the Aries video, when it talks about how Aries is the baby of the zodiac wheel. And I used the dumb baby as a reference. You know what I'm saying? I only said that because Aries people more than less go through life with living through their experiences rather than doing the studies and the academic knowledge and all of that stuff beforehand, unless they have some specific placements inside of their natal chart that suggest them to do so, and they will embark on those endeavors in that case. However, so I also use some bodily references that pertains to anatomy, right? When it comes to the astrological wheel and the signs and stuff. So with Aries, it was the head. So now we're going to continue and extend from that by explaining how Taurus is ruled by the throat, all right? Ruled by the mouth, the bottom half of the face, okay? And why this has importance of what I'm trying to say here. So, okay, I got my notes too. All right, so now, all right, let's talk about this. Taurus rules the second house, right? And is ruled by the throat, the bottom half of the second face, the bottom half of the face, right? So think about this. Taurus is also a strong factor associated with Taurus is planning, right? So if you see when it comes to healthcare and stuff like that, they have this institution, I guess you can call it, they're an institution called Planned Parenthood, right? So notice the key word there is planned, right? And with this institution, they talk about things that are relative to actually getting rid of the child, right? So in some type of way, they discern that abortion and, abortion is a way to plan an actual parenthood, right? I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who debate this, whatever the case may be, and you may have your own thing that goes to this, but with besides that, right? Just think about how that is applied after the effect of actually being impregnated, and then how that applies to how this can be prevented should one think about it beforehand, right? Because remember in the Aries video, I talked about how Cancer is the mother and Cancer is the actual archetype of being impregnated. However, it's not Taurus, right? And with the reason why I spoke about Taurus being ruled by the throat as well is because when you think about it, right, when a baby is born, like extended from Aries, when a baby is born, right, cradle the baby is usually breastfed, right? If we're talking about natural, human anatomy stuff, right? The baby is nurtured by the breast, right? And I know this may sound sick, but although you spoon feed your babies by, Gerber foods and stuff like that, or whatever they call smashed peas, or whatever that processed stuff is, possibly it is. I'm not even here to slander them too much right now, or really not at all. But when you think about it, the whole baby bottle logic, right? Like, why is that like that? Why is milk put inside of a bottle, a long bottle that is shaped like a penis? You know what I'm saying? I want you to understand this too as well, because of what we're extending off of from, the semen lasting 5 days inside of a woman's body, and the egg lasting for 24 hours inside of a woman's body, right? 24 hours, the sun moves a degree in the astrological wheel, and 5 hours lasting inside of the woman's body is representative of Leo being in the 5th house, which is king, right? Man holding the sperm, which sparks the creation of life. 5th house is also relative to creativity. So yes, I am kind of applying this analogy to semen swallowing and stuff like that. And don't worry, the children restriction is on this video, or whatever the case may be. So again, this might sicken you. However, I want you to take this in consideration, because extended from the last video, right, I mentioned how the sun is exalted inside of the sign of Aries. And if Aries is the baby of the zodiac, right, and the sun is exalted in there, sun is vital source energy, right? Spinal cord, spinal fluid, that is where comes from. You understand what I'm talking about? So pay attention to what I'm saying. Second house is also relative and applied to Taurus, and it deals with income, spending habits, materialistic attitude, your attitude towards investments, debt, budgeting, savings, investing, all of that stuff, right? So key word here, income, right? Income. So don't think that I didn't design this language, you know what I'm saying? Like, this is how it is. This is what it is. But if you look in between the lines, you can see
what it is that I'm talking about. So why am I really stating that? So we can get past the whole semen swallowing thing, right? The reason why I'm stating this is because um, if you look at today's food industry, right? FDA, I mean FND, Food and Drug Administration, right? Yeah, FDA. That is what it's called. If you look at it, there's all types of foods flying around in the States. Europe, I give y'all props. Y'all always be fighting and banning ingredients and stuff like that and all that. America's not warriors like that. They may get dressed up in the fatigue suits and go out and go slaughter something, but when it comes to fighting at home base for like ingredients that are inside of the foods and stuff that are causing harmful effects, Americans don't get busy like that. Europeans, shout out and my hats off to y'all for doing that. But here, there is so much pain and suffering caused by the consumption of foods. Remember, Taurus ruled by the throat, by the consumption of foods, that all of these sicknesses are popping up, and is the healthcare industry is burdensome on the economy because it's too costly. You understand what I'm talking about? So this is why I'm bringing up semen swallowing and stuff like that, because if one is obese, right, the estates is obese. All right, the states is unhealthy, right? So even when the first lady wants to put great lunches inside of schools and stuff like that, she gets bashed in the media because of doing that. Why? Because for some reason people like the whole obese attitude. And I'm not saying everybody likes this, but the people who got power over some controls like to put that out there to the masses, right? But this is further from the truth. I don't think anybody just wants to be unhealthy. I think they are dealing with what they are exposed to and what they can afford. And with that being said, sometimes they are consuming harmful foods. Like if we look at like General Mills cereals, and this I can attest to, so this is not even slander, they have paint thinner inside of their cereals. Who does that? You know what I'm saying? Like how is that logically sound to put paint thinner inside of someone's food? And you know how much children consume cereals. So what are you really getting at here? You're saying, this is what you're saying blatantly, that this is a war on the human anatomy. This is a war on the human's body. And this is why Taurus is so important. And this is why my videos on YouTube, when I be going through the motions and I be like, sometimes getting so frustrated with Taurus, is because of stuff like this. You understand what I'm talking about? Because Taurus rules the second house of personal values. So in the human anatomy and the scope of humanity, right? What you consume, what the human consumes in their body and digests, and how those nutrients are processed within their body is going to determine their value. However, materialistic attitude, especially emphasized heavily in some places, is put on what's outside of the body. And this is another thing that Taurus rules, right? Art, decoration, fashion industry, acting, dancing, the arts, pretty much, right? So, I mean, I'm getting to that, right? But for the most part, what you ingest is going to determine how well you function in the world. All right. That is what determines that. It's not necessarily what you put on. Now, yes, it can be an add-on, it can be an accessory that attracts more people to you, right? So that raises attraction levels, but how much value is actually put on attention in the scope of economics? This is something we have to pay close attention. Oh, we don't have to, you know what I'm saying? But this is just something that I want to bring to light with this video. So let me tell you about my dream that I had during these past 2 weeks, which assisted me in making this video, right? So boom, I'm having a dream and I'm amidst a bunch of drug dealers, and these guys actually have a problem with me. They're not voicing what their problem is with me. They're just standing on the block a lot. You know what I'm saying? It's like 50 of them. You know what I'm saying? I'm not even exaggerating. And, I could feel the tension in the air, but no one's really saying what they need to say to me or whatever the case may be. So boom, one of these guys, and I know this guy, I actually had dealings with a family member of his. You know what I'm saying? So he tricked me. And, even in dreams, other dreams, like I'd be hooked off on this dude or whatever the case may be. Or even in real life, like I might have spazzed on him. You know what I'm saying? But I had so much control in what I was doing inside of this dream that I seen it was type of like a distraction to provoke me or whatever the case may be. And I didn't want to trip and fall out of the dream and miss what I needed to see. So I didn't swing on the dude or whatever the case may be. I just kept walking amongst them, and I was figuring out what it was that they was trying to tell me, because this big dude, he's massive, he's huge, right? Grabbed me by my arm and he was like, yo, listen, I need to talk to you about something, which I was waiting for somebody to tell me what's going on. And I know this person too as well, right? So he was like mentioning something about a drug stash or something that was taken off of the block when he wasn't around, this, that, and the third. And I'm like, yo, dude, I don't know about that. You know what I'm saying? If I knew about it, I'd tell you. You already know that. So, you beefing with me or you're upset with me for really no reason. So in about a couple of minutes after that, he found the culprit or whatever the case may be. I guess they hit his stash or whatever. They robbed him. Like they scaled his spot and then took it like that, like on some backhanded underneath the fucking radar type shit. So they did that, right? So he came to me, kind of apologized. He was like, "Yo, my bad. I found out who did it, this, that, and the third." Boom. So all respect was back to where it needed to be. All of the goons or whatever the case may be laid back. So now I've been the corner, right? And I see some of my people's coming around the corner. You know what I'm saying? And they're coming from a fast food restaurant, right? I kid you not. There's no lie. They're coming from a fast food restaurant, right? So I'm making these pointers: fast food restaurant, fast money. You know, everything is fast. So as we're bending the corner, as soon as we hit the corner of the main block in this area, we hear gunshots. I hear gunshots. So I come around a corner and I see the military. This is the real actual US military outside on my block. And they got their pistols out, AR-15s and everything, you name it. They got them out and they are shooting like crazy, right? Bullets flying everywhere. But again, I'm very, very relaxed inside of this dream. I'm very comfortable in this dream. So I walk up to the sergeant or whatever the case may be, and I see that they're shooting at this jet. It's like a jet fighter. It's like some new age type looking shit too. The shit was off the chain. You know what I'm saying? It had like these fucking reflectors, these black reflectors, look like cameras maybe on them and shit, right? But the shit looked dope. I kid you not. But the shit crashed. They shot that shit down out of the air. You know what I'm saying? That shit hit the ground. Boom. Exploded. Right. So I walk up to the sergeant and I'm like, "Yo, what's going on, sergeant?" He was like, I said, "Yo," and this just came out of left field. I was like, "Yo, is Russia behind this?" You know what I'm saying? He was like, "We cannot officially say that Russia is behind us, but as far as the jet fighter who manned this plane, but what we do know is that Russia has the ability to see through our cameras, and this is what would make Putin," and said Putin's name. This is what would make Putin make something like this occur, because he has the ability to see what's going on in this region. And so obviously he would not like what was going on in that region. So remember, the factors that I mentioned was fast money and fast food. You know what I'm saying? So I put two and two together. I started thinking about the things that Putin is involved with over there in Russia and how he values, citizenship at a degree to where the people actually run shit and it's not the outside institutions that run shit in Russia. So I'm like, okay, maybe this dream is showing me a hint that, the states is out of control when it comes to letting people exercise power over them. The country is pretty much under invasion. It's pretty much what I'm saying from this dream, right? So fast food lets me know, people who ingest fast food are pretty much putting themselves in danger when it comes to the human anatomy and putting themselves in danger when it comes to the value of the human being. Right? Now, some people may argue like this is a bunch of bullshit. Like, who cares about eating plants and vegetables and shit? If we're gonna fucking die any fucking way, just give me a pig, give me all the fucking bacon I can eat, and shut the fuck up already with this shit, right? And I hear you, I understand. So some people's moralities are not the same, right? Everyone's moralities are not the same. And with that being said, sometimes what you don't know won't hurt you. And this is a thing that I'm going to bring back up later about what you don't know won't hurt you. But I do want to speak about desert regions, right? So now let's talk about desert regions, since we are extending off of food and what you ingest down the throat, which is ruled by Taurus. Now, desert regions, if you don't know, is places inside of a community, right? That when you look inside of from 4 to 16 block radius, you can't find a supermarket. You can't find a supermarket that distributes produce that carries the nutrients to make you a functioning being, to the point of being a healthy individual. So what I'm saying is, you have grocery store, delis and stuff like that is distributing largely what do you call it? Hoagies, like sandwich meat, boar's head and stuff like that, sliced animals, cheeses and stuff, like processed cheeses, a lot of candies, right? Processed candies, a lot of sugar behind the counter, cigarettes, potato chips, cakes that have shelf life, that have preservatives in them because they have to preserve shelf life, right? So all of these things that I'm mentioning, ramen noodles and all of the stuff that I'm mentioning, is not good for your body. like just flat out. Now, these can be substitutes to keep people, hold people over or whatever the case may be, but they're not good for the body. And then on top of that, inside of these same regions, you have fast food restaurants popping up everywhere, that corner, that corner, that corner, and they're competing chains of these restaurants, right? So the ideal thing to do inside of these neighborhoods is, if you can't afford it, a lot of these neighborhoods are impoverished as well, right? So if you can't afford fast food restaurants, you go to the corner groceries and you pick up your half dozen of eggs. They be having eggs sometimes too, or you just pick up cupcakes and shit and like a bunch of fucking Wise potato chips or whatever the case may be, right? This shit ain't even funny. I don't even know why I'm laughing like that, but this is when people are left to their devices what they're doing, right? And if not, if you got a little bit of money, you go to the fast food restaurants, and I think today, like a number two in McDonald's is like fucking $8, $8.50 or some shit like that. Don't quote me on that, but I think I'm close, right? So when you look in the bigger scheme of things, if you take $8.50 and you go get a burger, some fries, and a fucking tall soda, if you take that same $8.50 to a supermarket or to a like those grocers on the side that have the vegetable stands in the front and shit like that, you could come out with a whole lot of produce for $8.50. I'm talking about a whole lot. Like, I've done it myself. I've practiced this stuff before I did the video, so I could clearly understand what I'm talking about, right? And the stuff is good for you. However, people attach what? Their value. Taurus type stuff. Attach their value so much to the M on the front of the McDonald's bag and coming out of it, right? The plastic toys. Your kids see the icons and the Ronald McDonald's and they're like, oh, mommy, daddy, bring me to McDonald's. And you're a sucker. So you just go do the shit and you're like, anything for my kids, mind your fucking business, right? And I'm like, oh, okay, you're going to help murder your kids. Okay, I'll mind my fucking business though. I won't say nothing about it and shit, right? So, but again, this is what people are placing their value, what people are attaching their values to. And I'm not saying everyone is like this. I'm not saying every Taurus is like this. I'm just saying this is the lesson and this is how it's in the zodiac wheel. In Taurus, you've been set up for the simple fact that you are next in line after the baby reaches the universe. Okay. And you are what will determine your energy, your aura is what will determine what makes the human anatomy valuable. Okay. I said all of that to say this. You will determine that by the ingestion, by the thing that comes out of the throat, and of course, by the things that come out of the throat as well. Words, right? So when you hear people speaking, and I got a vulgar mouth, you can blame me as well, but I do know how to curb it when it comes time to do certain like public videos and stuff like that, because I know people may think that I'm a fucking maniac because I'm cursing all the fucking time. You know what I'm saying? So I know how to curb that. So all of these scholars and the intelligent people will pay more attention to what it is that I'm saying so I can drive the message in, especially to some people who may have more power and be able to do something about the things that I'm bringing to the forefront. Right. But if people may not be aware, but the things that you consume will influence the way that you speak. So we could use alcohol for an example, right? Someone who gets drunk will speak in a way that is slurred, or they will speak in a way that is foul, or they will curse people out, despite how they say a drunk heart is a sober mind. Let's just keep it official, right? When someone is drunk, they are talking shit to the point where sometimes you want to drag them out of the room, or sometimes you want to take them out back and beat them a bit. You know what I'm saying? Because they have reached that level. So this is an example of how what you consume will influence the words that come out of your mouth. And depending on the words that come out of your mouth will determine your social network, right? So the way that you speak influences others around you. And this is how you group up and make networks and communities and stuff like that. So if we have these desert regions inside of these impoverished communities to where people are saying foul stuff because there's a liquor store on every corner as well, everybody's grouped up and they're speaking in this way that is not productive. And if it is productive, right, because crime is productive, if you haven't noticed, right, it does pay. Like, it's just it's a bullshit ass saying, right? But if you have these criminal networks coming up and it's productive in that manner, you can expect what you will see from those type of networks, those types of groups, and those types of communities. And is it all bad? I'm not going to be the decider of that. You know what I'm saying? But you will know the outcome, right? Another word that's associated with the second house in Taurus: outcome, income, outcome. What you put in is what you get out, right? So if you're putting in a whole bunch of things that are harmful to the human anatomy, you're going to get an outcome of harmful humans walking around. It could be like some Walking Dead zombie shit. So I know you understand what I'm talking about, even if you disagree, right? So let me get back to my notes. So The sun is exalted in Aries, right? But Mars, which is the sun activated, falls inside of the sign of Cancer, right? So why am I making a note of this? Because again, I said Taurus rules the throat. Taurus ingesting will determine the human value, right? But and as you know, the sun is exalted inside of Aries. So that means the more energy you give to the baby, the more valuable the baby is. So if Taurus continues that method and says, okay, well, I'm going to replenish my body with these things because it makes my body feel or function at this rate, is going to add more value to the baby, right? Now, pay attention because in the Cancer is the most insidious sign, fourth house video that I'm going to do. I'm going to bring this up again on how Taurus is determining the value of the baby, right? So it can be the actual Taurus or the Taurus energy that is still the baby. Like you can be 30 years old and still a baby. You can be 40, 50, 60 years old and still a baby if you think about it in the realm of ingestion and well-being, right? Because if you look at biblical references, they was living for what, thousands of fucking years, right? So don't look at me like I'm crazy. I know what the fuck I'm talking about. But again, this is why the production of humans is such at an alarming rate, is because motherfuckers don't care no more. It's all about the money, right? So it's just like, okay, yeah, go produce a whole bunch of fucking babies. We're gonna slaughter these motherfuckers before they even reach 100. You understand what I'm talking about? We don't care. They don't know the shit that we know. And this is the shit that I'm telling you, the shit that I know. So in case you don't know, now you know. But Mars is the sun taking action, right? And it's exalted, but Mars, right? Peep this. Mars is the sun activated, taking action. But Mars is exalted inside of the sign of Capricorn. And we all know what Capricorn is about: institutions, factions, organizations, government, right? Economics, real estate, shit like that. You understand what I'm talking about? So, corporations, I think I said that though. So, also militaries, right? So, of course, Capricorn is going to want Mars because Mars are the soldiers and Mars rules Aries. So going back to the Aries video when I said, look, Aries is the dumb baby. No offense, y'all, but Aries is the dumb baby who pretty much shoots and asks questions later, right? So these are your soldiers. These are the people who are not educated on some of the stuff that I'm talking about, right? Or if they do, they just don't give a fuck because they're that wild and crazy, and they're just like, give me the gun, give me my suit, and I'm going to kill shit because I'm a fucking Aries. You know what I'm saying? Or just people who have heavy Aries in their chart. So this is why Capricorn loves the Aries or loves Mars and is exalted inside of the Capricorn, because the soldiers will go out and shoot and ask questions later. They don't need to know, as long as the people behind the scenes who do know. It's like, again, that saying comes across that it's not, what you don't know won't hurt you. You know what I'm saying? So to reflect back on my dream, when the military soldiers were coming through, it's like they were there to shoot. You know what I'm saying? They did have intel though, because when I asked the question, they knew, but they didn't know everything. You know what I'm saying? They didn't know who the aircraft belonged to, who owned it, who drove it, whatever the case may be. They just knew how or why the attack was made, because people were able to see through the cameras, right? So again, in the military, it goes like this. They don't, they just get ordered to do what it is that they need to do. You know what I'm saying? And that mentality is why Mars is exalted inside of Capricorn. But the sun, right, which is, Mars is the sun activated, but the sun by itself, it falls inside of Libra. So now I want to talk about this and why this occurs. The sun is known as king, right? The sun is known as creator. The sun is known as creativity, right? The sun is known for speculative matters. The sun is known for romance. The sun is, which is a whole totally different story I'll get into later, how romance is actually sold. It wasn't what it's supposed to be naturally, but we'll talk about that at another time. So it's basically the reason why it falls inside of Libra is the negotiator. Libra is the contractor, the deal maker, right? The person who wants to bring balance. But if you know anything about kings and shit, kings don't give a fuck about that. You understand what I'm talking about? King is king. So you don't come consult with a king. You don't come and negotiate with a king. Now let's look back in prior empires and stuff like that, right? When you see the king, you see the queen, you know what I'm saying? On top of all of the court or whatever the case may be. So if you're going to consult or ask a question or try to find out if you can get something done politically, you go to the queen. You don't go to the fucking king. The king will have your head for that type of shit. Who do you think you are, just cutting corners and coming to the king directly like that? Are you nuts? That shit don't rock, right? So you go to the queen, and the queen is the Cancer archetype. The queen is second, right? Secretary. You go to the secretary, second, to consult, to ask questions, and the queen might just go grab and suck on the king's balls to get a few things done inside of the court. This is how shit goes. This is how shit went, right? So even in the stories of old, the king and the queen didn't always actually just get together, like get along with each other. Like it wasn't something like that. Like we seek today in relationships to be compatible with one another. This is something that is marketed in the fifth house with romance and stuff like that now. But that's not king and queenship. King and queenship is what? To produce, right? Deuce, two, again, second, deuce, produce children. That is the position and the reason being for there to be a queen inside of the court, right? For those reasons, and for people of the town, of the court, to come and suggest things politically, right? But the queen always had power suggestion. That's why I said she might grab the king's balls and do a little 1-2 to get something worked over, whatever the case may be. But king is still fucking king. You understand what I'm talking about? So again, queen is the mother archetype, and that's why Cancer is representative of the mother and the nurturer of the breasts and things of that nature, right? And although man is king, man is actually software, right? Man is software, because think about it. When we do get hard, like hardware, we pound the woman's pelvic bone until who fucking knows when we're going to stop, right? So it's really the women who are the hardware. They take all of the fucking bruises and the scratches and the beatings and shit, right? Men, we're hard for like 20 to 40 minutes, maybe an hour on a great night, a little bit more, depending on the moods or whatever. And that's it. We go right back to fucking being soft again. You understand what I'm talking about? So we're the software, and the woman is the manufacturer, universe facturer of the human anatomy, right? So this is why I said in the beginning, I said, yo, don't go crazy behind knowing this stuff, because you may question existence and be like, so why the fuck am I here? I'm just here because we wanted to harvest humans. Like, what type of wild shit is that? You know what I'm saying? But this is the logistics of this, because if you didn't need that, right, the sun would still be exalted inside of Aries, right? Aries, the baby, whoever that human is, will continue to eat the foods, consume the foods that replenishes their body and their soul to make them a functioning human being, and they'll just run through Earth, like they'll own Earth by themselves, kind of like the Adam and Eve story. You know what I'm saying? But it's not until the production of more humans that all of these issues and stuff occur. So, but like I was saying, that is why you consult with the queen and not the king, right? You go to the queen, and so the sun cannot be exalted inside of the sign of Libra. Like, you don't contract out with the king like that. You got to go to the queen. But if we look at politics today, right? Let's look at politics today. And the first thing I want to mention about politics, well, let me extend over the queen thing first. First of all, right, we have a bunch of men inside of these conference rooms and taking these Air Force One jet to go meet all these guys. Sure, they're shaking hands, they're shown with their wife or their significant other, their lover there, whatever the case may be. But they are not in the fucking conversations like that. You understand what I'm talking about? Like, they're not part of the decision-making process, as you would think so. There's more of the men talking. There's more of the president talking to these motherfuckers, determining or deciding what is going to fucking happen, when in all actuality, that should be the fucking queen. That should be the fucking queen, yo. That should be the first lady who says, you want to talk to the king, you want to talk to the president, you come talk to me. You come to me with your issues. You let me know what it is. And yes, this is similar to pimping or whatever the fuck you want to call it, right? Because, yeah, you put your woman in front of you. She can be charming. She can be enticing. She can have grace. She can just have charm and beauty. She can just have intellect and have a dialogue that is so refreshing to others that she wins them over by that way, right? She may have a turtleneck on and keeping the titties at bay, whatever, right? But with that being said, it gives this type of aura that protects the king. All of these men from other countries in different regions, since we're all not unified as one right now, any fucking way, right? Everybody got different flags and different military suits and shit. They shouldn't be in the cahoots of knowing everything that this man is planning to do, is doing in their nation, and this, that, and the third, right? But we reached the day in today's day and age where again, the king has reached a plateau and still utilizes ways of old to where knowing that the queen is just there for the production of an heir to produce a son, right? That is the most valued thing to a king, is to produce me a son. Give me a son, woman, right? And in that instance, they take the woman out of the whole consulting part. And this is where kings fall. This is where presidents fall, because they become subject to other men. And this is heavily emphasized in this day and time, has something to do with the Aquarius age, but it's probably something that I'll talk about more along the lines later on down the line when I get more to Aquarius things. Now, to say that, I want to say this as well, right? In politics, we got this whole, well, hold on. Let me get back to my notes. All right. Okay. So in politics, right, we got this whole, like I was saying, the whole making the laws, they're going around the queen. So now they got this slogan of how the military soldiers are protecting the way of life at home, right? So again, Mars is exalted inside of Capricorn. And the reason why they're able to protect our way at home is because these soldiers don't know any better. So it's like your war veterans that come back and they're like, yo, I fought for this fucking country, whatever the case may be, and now I'm fucking homeless. Or I have a place to stay. Or, shit is fucked up. The shit that I was fighting for didn't even make any sense here. It's worse off than it was when I came back. You know what I'm saying? So with that being said, a military soldier would want to question now, well, what the fuck was going on this whole time I was done? What are the industries that's actually producing GDP for nations and countries and shit like that, right? So when you look at it, Taurus energy and people who are here for the Taurus energy, the whole Taurus spill of things, right? Taurus rules the arts. I mentioned this earlier. So if we look at politics right now at this moment, the arts was defunded in the political agenda. Okay. So all of the programs that was afforded, government programs and stuff like that from the GDP that was allocated to the funding of the arts, which is dance, acting, and stuff like that, is taken out. So that makes one ponder, why is that taken out? And I say to question how much value is actually valued by these industries, dance, art, even art that goes on the wall. How much value are people really putting to this, and does it make any sense in the bigger scheme of things? Because if they made that type of decision to get rid of it, it should make people question, well, how much are we putting into it? So I'll speak like this, right? According to the film industry, I think that's probably acting has the best return ROR. And I didn't research this, but I see a lot of blockbuster films that pop up and like, yo, we spent this and we made this. Like, especially those Marvel movies, they're like over the top billion, I think, for that end game. Made a billion, I think. So that lets you know that acting is still in the realm of producing great wealth in an industry. But if we look at things such as dancing and we look at things such as songs and stuff like that, like you go on iTunes, a song is like $1 to $1.29 for a song. Like, how the fuck? What the fuck is that about? So if we're making music videos that cost $1 million budgets and shit like that, 900 grand for a fucking video, then what the fuck? How are we putting so much value to that? See, now, in the bigger scheme of things, you'd have to say, well, what are the words coming out of the mouths of this music? And how is it influencing people in networks and groups? So if you have a large group of people who are attaching value to things that are of no significance or have little value in a bigger scheme of things, then what you have on your hands is a weapon that can invade a country, it can invade a nation. Right? So I'm not saying nothing wrong here. Maybe I'm not saying anything right either. I'm just speaking the shit that's really fucking evident right now. You know what I'm saying? And this has been going on for years. But again, Taurus, this is the industry that you rule, right? So how much attention is Taurus energy and aura being put into those industries? And if so, do you know the value of it? Like if a person says, okay, these sneakers are $1,000, did you ever check to see the COGS, the cost of goods sold? Right? So I think Starberry, for an example, using an example, right? Starberry made a sneaker back in the days, cost like 15, $20 inside of the store, right? And he made it clear, like, yo, this produced at the same amount that a pair of Air Jordans is produced. You know what I'm saying? But what you gonna do? You're gonna go buy the Air Jordans because of how much value other people attach to it, right? I would myself would say Jordan is a better looking shoe too, but here nor there. I'm just making a point to let you know that, sometimes people attach value to something that is maybe not as much as worth what you think it is. You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to the fashion industry, Taurus, And I've mentioned this in some of my Taurus videos, how they can be materialistic, how they can be hoarders, right? So, they'll buy something and they may get the bargain a lot of times. Taurus is a great bargainers. They may get the bargain a lot. But how does this apply when it comes to your networks, Tauruses and people with utilizing Taurus energy in your chart? How does what you peg value to yourself as an individual apply with your networks? Because 9 houses over from Taurus lands in the house, in the sign, excuse me, of Capricorn. Okay, and that sign of Capricorn is about industry, sector, corporations, government, economics, right? And Taurus have great business, finance sense, excuse me, right? But it is how. So if basically what I'm saying is, if when Taurus is in Taurus energy is applied in a way that suggests higher education, morals, ethics, um, more freedom when it comes to decision making and being your own self instead of being frugal and patient all the time, like actually taking some action, um, and I'm not saying to lose patience altogether, but I'm saying to utilize the ambition in a way that is goal achieving. How is that utilized and how does it transfer to your networks? Because if you're part of the network that does more harm than good, then there's a clear distinction and that line is drawn in the sand. You understand what I'm talking about? So, you may have heard the saying that, one of these days you got to choose sides. So whether you like to admit it or not, you're choosing sides through your consumption habits, through your purchase habits, through your materialistic attitude, right? So, but again, and so when I say Taurus people are not that spiritual and stuff like that, again, 9 houses over from the Taurus sign in the solar chart is going to land in the sign of Capricorn. So this is a way that people can actually pinpoint and identify just how much you're utilizing any type of spirituality you have when it comes to the corporate world, right? And we know who you are. And like they say, show me who you hang out with, I'll tell you who you are. We know who you are by who your network is, right? So the next house over, which is career, is 10th house in Aquarius in the solar chart for Tauruses, right? And Aquarius rules over networks. So for the Tauruses and the people utilizing Taurus energy out there, when you are staying to yourself and you are isolating in a way that suggests you don't want to interact with the air energies and the stuff like that, right? You just want to say, okay, personal attitude, everything is personal, second house stuff. I get it. Your natural tendency is to do so. However, when it comes down to it, who are your networks? And if you don't have any, with the air energy moving at a rapid pace the way that it is, they can come and engulf you, right? They can come and invade your country. And if you don't care about the country and you're like, this country was terrible in the beginning or whatever the case may be, I understand, you know what I'm saying? But if you have that attitude, then they may just come invade your neighborhood. And if you're still not impressed or you think, okay, big deal, I don't care, I'm not part of the community talks or functions anyway, then they might come invade your housing complex, or they may invade your apartment building. And then the next thing you know, you might be getting letters taped on your door about now you got to go get inspected for measles or some shit like that. You understand what I'm talking about? So don't think that what I'm saying right now is far off being held as viable. Okay. This stuff is for real. And it's something that can be taken into consideration. Because another thing I want to mention about Aquarius without getting into deep and taking it away from the Taurus video is the Aquarius energy is actually replacing the secretary position that Cancer, the queen archetype, once held. It's replacing the the producer even in some ways, because of the nurturer, the mother archetype in some ways, excuse me, because your kids are being raised by mobile devices. Your kids are being raised by smartphones and tablets. All right. Some of y'all still, yeah, y'all keep the connection. Y'all make sure they only watch 4 hours of TV and shit like that. But for the most part, y'all sitting these kids in front of these fucking devices so they can keep them occupied and out of your fucking way. And just be honest, or you're at work so much or you're at school so much that you just don't have the time to tend to your children like that. So the Aquarius rules over internet. Okay. Aquarius rules over technology. So Aquarius energy is now becoming the nurturer of your children. You're also doing a lot of consultancy or consulting the king even through the internet. I can attest to this myself, to where, Sometimes I don't fully trust people, the actual human, to the extent that I trust my fucking computers. So I'll set up like, what do you call that, funnels, so that people can communicate to me through there, so I can actually filter it, you know what I mean, and even possibly archive and record it, put it in record keeping, you know what I'm saying? Because as you see with all of these people who were before us, they're coming out with these stories. Oh, he touched me, he groped me, he touched my titties, Gary, and all of this. And then later on down the line, now they're in fucking court fighting $1 million cases for shit that if they had smartphones then, they'd be like, look, this bitch told me she wanted to suck my balls. Like, what is she talking about now? Like, this is bullshit. Look, I got the evidence right here. You know what I'm saying? So again, you want to consult with the king. You're not going to come fucking directly to the king. You're going to go through his secretary. And the Aquarius energy is replacing that energy. You know what I'm saying? Through the internet. So again, air energy is, and it's not all bad. And when you think of it in the bigger scheme of things, it can also be a protective mechanism as well. You know what I'm saying? Because when you think about the abusive parents, the abusive, even religious leaders, you name it, right? It came from human on one-on-one interaction, right? But nowadays you can actually catch a child predator from, like, making advances or whatever the case may be, or sending kitty porn to fucking children or whatever the case may be. Like, you can catch these motherfuckers through the internet. You know what I'm saying? Because they think they can be sneaky or slick or whatever by being, under the radar by doing it in private. But that type of shit can be caught. But when it's happening in a household and it wasn't cameras everywhere, you'd be none the wiser. Like, you wouldn't necessarily know all of that shit. You know what I'm saying? So again, what you ingest through the throat, Taurus, right? Because I'm talking about what's being nurtured to your children through a motherly type of archetype that's being replaced. But as the individual, we still need a sense of self, right? So I'm not even throwing the whole Taurus ideology out of the window. Like, we need that shit more than ever right now. Like, we need to get fucking running through the grass butt naked and get grounded and shit like that, and get away from these lights and fucking cameras and fucking technology and shit like that. Trust me when I tell you, like, I'm around this shit a lot. You know what I'm saying? So I know what I'm talking about. So how do we get to that if we are being invaded in such a way? And I'm not saying this is happening to everybody. I'm just saying, hypothetically speaking, right? If we're being invaded or bombarded by these things in such a way that we are putting all our value into it, like a fucking iMac, that shit costs $1,500 fucking dollars. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not even talking about the biggest one. So let's use this for an example for a minute, right? If we use an accounting profit in the business world, you would say, okay, well, that goes to the asset, so now it's worth $1,500. And if you try to sell that shit right now, you could sell it for like $1,300. True story, right? So, okay, yeah, it still has value to it, but how much money have you, like, people who bought IMAX? It's a question, you can answer it too. How much money have you made back from that $1,500 investment, and how quickly did you make it back, right? And if it's slow, if it's sluggish, then that would suggest that perhaps this thing is not as valuable as people put the price on it. You know what I'm saying? So that's something that should be taken into consideration when it comes to consumerism in the market. Because you got to remember this, the more that people buy things that are expensive yet have no true value, the more that the market will be dictated by those consumptions, right? The more that you will be put in situations where, okay, they're using accounting profiting method. They're making a new stadium in this neighborhood. So rent is going to go up about $300 to $350 around here because of it, right? And now, mind you, they ain't even sell no fucking tickets yet. But they're making this prediction based on future value, right? Future value. So let's say, like, in that type of scenario, right? What if somebody just came out of nowhere, some powerful motherfucker, and just said, yo, fuck all this shit, and started boycotting fucking baseball games and saying, yo, fuck baseball, we're not going to none of these fucking games, and actually made an impact? Not like a Gucci band or something like that, but some shit that people really got behind, and the fucking stadiums ended up being empty. Do you know how the fucking investors of that organization would panic? Do you know how the value of that stadium would be dwindling overnight? Do you know how rent would actually go back down in that community as well because those tickets aren't being sold? You get what I'm saying? However, if people are pegging all of this value on these things continuously, then you can see the opposite happen. You can see more foreclosures. You can see more homelessness. You can see, this is because people are really not playing defense, which is their second house, their personal finances. They're not saving their spending. They're going with the shit. Like, okay, yeah. It's like going to the movies, right? To this day, when I do go to the movie theaters, I sneak food in because I know the value of a fucking nacho chip with cheese. You understand what I'm talking about? I know the value of it. I know, like, I did this study in school, right? Of how the rich people don't even know that they're being robbed, right? And I don't mean like being robbed by gunpoint and shit. I mean by, you go into a store, you pay an inflated price on a cup of coffee. Like, you can't tell some rich people that making a cup of a cappuccino at home is much more better and valuable than it is going to Starbucks to get their coffee. They'll say, "Oh, well, it's convenient for me. It's on my way to work, and I like the chocolate macchiato or whatever however you pronounce that shit. And I couldn't make it like this. I couldn't do it like this." No bullshit, motherfucker. Whatever 15 minutes that you did using in the morning, you could apply to that fucking coffee. You know what I'm saying? You could have fucking woke up 15 minutes earlier just to make that coffee. You could have bought the ingredients for that type of coffee, same type of coffee, and maybe even better for 20 to 30% less than what you're spending inside of that coffee establishment that you're going to. You understand what I'm talking about? So I just gave a blueprint for people to financially fight on either side. You know what I'm saying? But if you are aware of this argument that keeps being expressed about the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer, just know that it's attributed to the second house and how people value. It's Taurian energy, how people are valuing things, how people are valuing themselves, and how people are functioning inside of the economy. Because I always say it's the consumer's fault. And it is. In all actuality, it is. You know what I'm saying? People that I lost close to me because of drugs and stuff like that. Like, I had to come to the realization that it was them who consumed those things. I'm not gonna blame fucking El Chapo and them for shipping this shit over here. Like, somebody in this fucking community knew that these people wanted those drugs. Some people knew that these people wanted that alcohol. So they put more liquor stores. They put more bars in certain areas, right? And when it comes to fucking happy hour, these people go and they fucking consume these drinks at alarming rates. This is what the fuck they want to do. So I understand, like, I'm not preaching to you as some high mighty fucking educator or whatever the case may be. I'm just telling you, if you are ever finding yourself in the realm of the debate of richer getting richer and poorer getting poorer, and you're the type of individual who makes the type of consumptions that do not put you in a position to either become the richer or in a position to fight the richer, then it's kind of like irrelevant. You know what I mean? And that's pretty much it. Like, that's pretty much it. So remember, income, financial attitude with Taurus, right? Taurian energy. Spending habits, financial attitude, savings, investings. Are you a receiver? Are you a giver? Are you stingy? Are you generous? Take these things into consideration. This actually extends off of the video that I did about Aries and stuff like that. With the high interest rates, find banks that have higher interest rates. If you are going to be a saver, you may even want to look at swapping currencies. So it's like, if you take, the interest rate might be like 14% in Russia, right? So, but the interest rate in my here, it might be like 50 fucking 0.50%, right? So you might want to take 10 grand, 20 grand, put it in a bank in Russia, depending if you know some Russians and you trust them like that, right? Put 20 grand US inside of a Russian bank, shit gains 14% interest. You understand what I'm talking about? See, I'm giving you game right now. You understand what I'm talking about? And people have been doing this because they understand what the fuck I'm talking about too, right? They're just not going to be a customer, a consumer 365 days of the fucking year. You know what I'm saying? Just to impress people or even to feel good about themselves. Some people do this shit to feel good about themselves because of other reasons, that they feel depressed or disconnected from the world or disconnected from human interaction, disconnected from humanity as a whole. Right? So yeah, it's pretty much all I have to say for now. There will be notes in the description box to be highlighted about how they will transpire in the next videos that are to come. I believe a Taurus video is up next too. I'm doing 2 Taurus videos back to back. And then eventually we're going to get into that Cancer being the mother archetype, and the most insidious house is the 4th house. And I say that with love too, because I'm actually interested in the insidious factor that plays inside of the 4th house. And again, that's my opinion, but I'm going to break it down for you and you can determine whether you think so as well. You know what I'm talking about? So yeah, I'm out, y'all.
Yeah. Woo. Yeah. When you get that order right, it's like you develop that order. You know what I mean? It's like, yo, if you see me like spilling sound and sauce on my shirt and shit, just bear with me, you know. I'm traveling right now. She put her heart up in front of her chest, so I guess she's suggesting that she loves me. I'm pressed to get her to confess that I'm already impressed by the rest. It's so comfy, left all of the stress at the chest, and the waist already left on the jet to her country. She don't want a baguette, necklace, just chest, titties pressed to my chest when she hugs me. It's easy, y'all. I like chicks that make my pee-pee hard. Hee-hee haw and cheeky boys on little bikinis on. My Stevie, y'all, when they get kind of the CPR. Then I push it in that box like it's VCR. People Toms wanna see us get a freaky on. Fifth dimension jumping over these here 3D norms. The beaches warm, my booties looking like a peach inside that beach. Longest piece so you can't even see the string is on. Real estate still in the reach of palm. My fingerprints used to be covered in ink. Can't see the piece from this green lawn, and now I like pink. The only pussy that I beat on since wait, let me think. Some would just love it if I keep on regurgitating spew that I knew. So only residue left from new things I do is a clue. Seeing things that you just can't see from porch view. Balcony toasting the Taurus is what like horseshoe. She put her heart up in front of her chest, so I guess she's suggesting that she loves me. I'm pressed to get her to confess that I'm already impressed by the rest. It's so comfy, left all of the stress at the chest, and the waist already left on the jet to her country. She don't want a baguette, necklace, just chest, titties pressed to my chest when she hugs me. I don't be around to hear what anybody says about me, cause it ain't about my business, about my bread. I can get the gossip just by napping in my bed. Those DMT troops give me more intel than the feds. Was just with a MILF, had those Tina Turner legs. The guests who just left shaped like Mrs. West. Didn't set out to do shows, but they say my songs the best. I only talk about titties, my audience might be last. I just left Texas doing rodeo. Fitting to do Venice and then Tokyo. He should have seen us coming, all the songs he wrote. It's kinda hard when they only know the coke he sold. No pity party, there's still no bra on the titties party. I enter calmly, but blondies wrapping their wrists around me. Chicks in the army will sat me, fatties on mission laundry. I keep a partner, not a missus, that may miss you for me. Heart up in front of her chest, so I guess she's suggesting that she loves me. I'm pressed to get her to confess that I'm already impressed by the rest. It's so comfy, left all of the stress at the chest, and the waist already left on the jet to her country. She don't want a baguette, necklace, just chest, titties pressed to my chest when she hugs me. missions. She be tweaking on that alcohol. I think she be on that Adderall. Pinky bling, steps the back and forth. Tone it down, I taught you how to talk. You know me, I never had a bro. I keep the bitch and don't feel bad at all. I ain't training just to pass her off. She gotta put the points on daddy's ball. And on, baby doll. Sometimes you forget what they pay me for. Not one of them kids who finna play them all. Spending what I made to keep my name involved. Bitch, don't judge me on how I first came across. Switch up on the fish, that's how I became Jaws. Hanging out with whales, oh, they playing golf. Maybe the gazelles and Versace's clothes. If I hit your cell, y'all better take it off. Titties suffocating in no spade bras. Booty shorts exposing that cake of y'all. Sometimes when you spend a whole day in drawers, you like to claim it's yours. You faded home. You can't play it off, I see the way you shrug. The way you push up on me's looking rated off. The type of ceremonies to blame it on drugs. Unless you say it, she be speaking on that alcohol. I think she be on that Adderall. Pinky bling, stops the back and forth. Tone it down, I taught you how to talk. You know me, I never had a bro. I keep the bitch and don't feel bad at all. I ain't training just to pass her off. She gotta put the points on daddy's ball. And on, she got the look. She got it. What the fuck she want because I got the book. When I lock her in my chambers, now she shook. Eating like she on powder and sour kush. Whispering, look how all your dollars look. Cause she don't want the swing to come down off the books. Cotton spotted cotton in her pocketbook. She got the same nail color weed streak. Favorite fragrance, tell me what you need, babe. Cause she know her daddy is a cheapskate. She be on my meat like it's cheesesteak. She make my account look like I won a sweepstakes. So I be on those cheeks like it's cheesecake. Telling me take pictures when I leave stage. She no comprende when I say that I need space. I tell her just one bottle, she say that she need a case. Hope she don't need a speaking on that alcohol. I think she be on that Adderall. Pinky bling, stops the back and forth. Tone it down, I taught you how to talk. You know me, I never had a bro. I keep the bitch and don't feel bad at all. I ain't training just to pass her off. She gotta put the points on daddy's ball. And on. Like a bottom half of a glass of liquid swishes, burgundy kisses, matches of Mac in her bag. If I wasn't such a Mac, she'd be missing out. She be speaking on that alcohol. I think she be on that Adderall. Pinky bling, stops the back and forth. Tone it down, I taught you how to talk. You know me, I never had a bro. I keep the bitch and don't feel bad at all. I ain't training just to pass her off. She gotta put the points on daddy's ball.